So, hi everyone, I'm Tom Evans, also known as The Bookright, and you can find me online at thebookright.com. And I'm speaking today to Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Joanna.
Hi Tom, great to speak to you.
So, listen, I've just finished reading your new novel, Pentecost, and I am gobsmacked. What have you just done? That's fantastic.
I'm quite excited about myself. Look, I've even got a copy with me.
Fabulous.
Very
So,
excited.
listen, we spoke about this about 18 months ago, and when you were just thinking about this, and you said, "Oh, I can't write fiction." Well, you obviously can, because I've just read it. What was the switch?
Well, Tom, part of the reason we're talking is because you really helped me with this. I have always been a non-fiction writer. I'm a business consultant, and I thought that pretty much that's all I could write. And I've written a couple of non-fiction books, and then I've always wanted to write fiction. It's always been a dream of mine, but I was really held back by the feeling that I had to write literary fiction. Umberto Eco was always my sort of hero. I had to write some prize-winning, Booker Prize-winning literature. And then, one day I talked to you on the phone, and we talked about that sort of being a block in my head. And you helped me with a meditation about sort of thinking about those things and thinking about the things that I love and the things that I might like to write about. And after we talked, I went and had a look at my bookcase, and I just got down all the books that I really love and I love to read as fun. And I realised that actually I read a lot more thrillers and action adventure and, religious, psychological stuff that's sort of fast-paced, high body count. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try and write that. So I think, in essence, I was freed from this, tether of having to write literary fiction, and realised that, writing a book is about giving a reader a fun experience, and yeah, I hope that's what it is for people.
Well, people say actually when you write your first novel that there's an autobiographical element in it always. So are there any characters or aspects of characters that have got a bit of Joanna in them?
Well, I hope it's not the evil guy that sort of burns the nun in the first chapter to death. But no, I mean, of course, in an alter ego life, I would have been a psychologist, and my protagonist is a psychologist of the sort of paranormal, spiritual, Morgan Sierra, and she's based at Oxford University, where I went, and I studied theology at Oxford, so she kind of blends some of that in, but she's also ex-Israeli military sort of kick-ass lady, and I'm not quite that hard. So yes, there's definitely aspects of my study and things that I'd like to do. There's a lot of my travels are in there, bits and bobs, like one of the scenes is in Venice, and the characters talk about how it's going to be underwater one of these days, and when I was there it was flooded, up to your knees. So yes, absolutely, there are some aspects that are written from my life, I guess.
Yeah, and I saw you as Morgan, definitely, and of course you can always fulfill our alter egos at any time. Now, who's going to play Morgan when the film comes out?
Well, it's funny you should say it, because I like to describe the book as, a sort of Dan Brown with Lara Croft. And so I know Lara Croft isn't really a book, but I really like the Lara Croft idea of the sort of kick-ass woman who's still quite, attractive and does all these things around the world. And so of course, Angelina Jolie played her in that. Now, she's changed a bit since then, but I still have my heart set on Angelina. And yeah, Hugh Jackman, clearly, for Jake.
Brilliant. Well, this is great, isn't it? Because you've set your sights high here. One is that you're not just going to write one book, but there's going to be a whole series, which is fantastic, and that you've written it specifically to achieve a goal, which I think is fantastic. And did you find that helped you round the blocks that were there?
Yes, I think once I decided that I was going to write a blockbuster airport-style novel, that was always my aim. So if anyone's interested in it, it's certainly not literary fiction. It's kind of blockbuster style. And once I realised that, I took a whole load of books in that genre and kind of deconstructed them to work out what were the things that they did. And then I did deliberately follow that structure. So some people might say that's formulaic, but I really consider it a structure around which I wrote my novel. So, and I think that's fine. That's genre fiction. That's what we do. It's not plagiarism. It's kind of modeling success, which is one of the ways we all learn, isn't it? So yeah, I guess that's how I did it.
Well, and so apart from it, it is a great romp and it's a great read. It's one of these things that you finish one chapter and you think, oh, I'll do a couple of chapters before I go to sleep at night. And then you end up sort of 1 o'clock in the morning having read much more than you thought, which is exactly what you do with the Dan Brown. And I love the way he does that. And you've done exactly the same thing by weaving in several stories at the same time. You read a bit of one story, then you want to get back to the other story and all that sort of stuff, which is a great writer's trick. And actually, it is also a trick, isn't it, that when you're writing like that, you can't wait as a writer to get back to the other story, so you're inspired to bring out these other threads.
Oh.
But there's a lot of theology in there, isn't there? A lot
Yes.
of Carl Jung and this thing called the Mysterious Red Book. So tell me what inspires you about those topics.
Well, as I said, I did theology, and I actually specialised in the psychology of religion, and Carl Jung was a really big part of that study. So I always wanted to bring him in somewhere, and originally the book was called Mandala, and I was going to write, primarily around the Carl Jung area. And then as I started writing back in December 1999, they published the Red Book, and if people don't know, it's basically Jung's private diary of when he was having a breakdown. And essentially, that book's been hidden for, 80, nearly 100 years now, and only just then was it published and shown to the public. So I've got this, it's massive, kind of full size of all his drawings and paintings, and in there is a painting where he has a man prostrated in front of a stone with a pillar of fire coming out of it. And I just saw that, and it just inspired so many things that I decided to weave in the Pentecost stone idea with Carl Jung. And then you understand synchronicity. The more I looked into it, the more his story fitted together. It was too many coincidences. It was just amazing, considering I made up so much stuff. It actually fitted in.
Well, you say you made it up, but do these stones exist?
Well, clearly not. I did make that stuff up. It is interesting. What I really wanted to do was hang fiction on top of what some people consider truth, other people consider to be myth or history of the early church. So I wanted to have the apostles, and who knows, they could have taken something from the tomb of Jesus. You wouldn't put it past a group of people to do that. And then the power of God infuses the stones with the Holy Spirit, and so who knows. But in the book, clearly, there is a power, in the stones, and that does do things and miracles and stuff. So, yeah, I guess it all comes together.
And do you think that Carl Jung has been working through you as well?
Well, you never know. I certainly will use more psychology in other books. I specifically had Morgan Sierra, specialise in that anomalous area, parapsychology, psychology of religion. So we will be coming back to these aspects. And as you've read, I have tied it into some things that I'll be bringing back in some of the other books in the series.
I just love that. So you decided to self-publish this book?
Yes, so I've learned a lot about publishing in the last few years, and I'll say this to anyone, I absolutely would love a big book deal with a big publisher, and I'd love to be in all the airports in the world, and, like we all would, we would love to, I want to be Dan Brown, absolutely. But to get there are many paths, and I'm such an impatient person, I love doing things myself, and there are a lot of stories now of people making impact on publishers by sales success. So what I've decided to do is try to get them to notice me as opposed to go begging with my manuscripts. So while some people spend time waiting and sending things off to people, I'm going to be making money by selling books on the Kindle and, in print, but also I'll be pitching to publishers at the same time. So I'm going to New York in July to Thriller Fest, and I'll be writing the next book, and I guess I'm just trying to sell in a different way, sell by getting noticed.
Oh, brilliant. I'm totally behind you on that, and I did the same thing in the non-fiction side, which is I wrote a couple of non-fiction books, and actually my publisher noticed me, and then the deal came from that. So it definitely works, that approach, getting out there, taking action. And but I noticed you've done one thing which is really, really important. You've had a really good proofread and a good edit. So there's, nothing jumped out at me as any errors that you often see in works that have been done this way, which can put people off.
No, it's one massive thing I've learnt, which is copy editing is critical, and professional cover design and book design is critical. And I paid for both, which is what you have to do as an independent publisher. And it totally changed the book. You can't see your own mistakes. You just can't. So yes, I had 7 proofreaders. I had in the end 2 copy edits and a full edit. So I did really aim to have a professional product.
And what about that incredible timeline? And did anyone go and check? I didn't read it. I was just reading it to enjoy it. I wasn't reading it from a professional perspective, and that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Even though I work in this field, I just was completely absorbed in it as a book. I forgot about you being the author and what have you. I was just absorbed by the whole book. But that timeline is fairly cutthroat, isn't it?
What you mean? How fast it is to get to the end?
Yeah, exactly. Do they have time to sleep?
Well, I guess in that way I wanted it to be cinematic and movie-like. And in these movies, you get, it's like the 24 and all of those TV programs where it's fast-paced. I don't want to see the characters sleeping, eating, brushing their hair. I don't want to see all that stuff. So yes, I do jump around. And some of the feedback I've had is it could have been another 50,000 words longer, And I guess I feel like that's not what I wanted. I wanted to cut away and, as you say, cut between the stories. I wanted it to be fast-paced. I didn't want there to be a single word that was extraneous. So I hope that comes across. And it is kind of breakneck speed, and that was the idea. So I'm glad that came across.
It did indeed. Now let me ask you: is there any what I call a meta point? Is there any sort of subtext that any point you're trying to make about world religions or psychology or the way that we think in there that's hidden?
Well, I guess on a big scale, I want to investigate questions of faith and belief and spirituality in my writing. So, as I said, my interest is in psychology, spirituality, religion of all kinds. And so I'm going to be investigating all these different things in my book. And I did kind of want it to be up to you as to whether there was a power of God involved, in the book, and up to you to think what's coming next. And I guess I will investigate more through dialogue, through what Morgan thinks and what Jake thinks and what other characters think. There will be more about this. And in the next book, Prophecy, I'll be getting more into neurotheology, which is a new field in neuroscience, which is looking at, what goes on in the brain when you look at faith. So I'm fascinated with those topics, and I hope that resonates in the book. But primarily it's about having a good laugh and a good romp through the book, a good entertainment.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. And so I wish you really well with the book. Where can people find it online, Joanna?
Right, well, it's launching on Monday the 7th of February, and you can find it on amazon.com.uk, all the Amazons basically, in Kindle format and in print format, and it's also on barnesandnoble.com and pretty much all over the place. And if you go to pentecostnovel.com, you'll be able to find all those details there. So it's available everywhere, I guess.
Fabulous. Now listen, you've mentioned the word romp a few times. I'm hoping that this whole exercise, this whole initiative you started is going to take you on a fantastic romp. So where do you think you're going to be in 2 or 3 years' time?
Oh, well, I'm absolutely writing a series. So the next one, Prophecy, is ready, and Pilgrim will probably be the one after that. So I've got a P, sort of series coming through. So I'll definitely be writing more novels. I'm going to travel more, absolutely, because I like to have really good locations in the books. And I hope to be over in Europe with you again sometime. So that would be great too.
Fabulous. Well, listen, you've inspired me to pick up my novel again, which I wrote about 3 or 4 years ago, which I've not done nothing with. So I'm now you've thrown the gauntlet to me. I hope that other people that are watching this will also pick up their pen and write, because there's no better thing than seeing your own work in print and getting that first print copy of your book through the post. And also it opens so many doors for you, which I can testify from my own perspective. So many congratulations, Joanna. It's been an absolutely fantastic pleasure to be able to read the book. And just wish you well, and can't wait to see the film.
Thanks so much for having me, Tom.